Nashir sir, can we start, sir?
Namaste. Is it audio visible? Video
Yes, sir.
visible?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
It's a bit blurred though.
Okay. Just give me a moment.
Yeah, sir.
How is it now?
Yes, sir, it's better.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another lecture session. So, let's begin the session with a prayer. Om ध्यायामो धवलावं धनवती तेजोमयी नैष्टिकी स्निग्धापाङ्गविलोकिनी भगवती मन्दस्मितश्रीमुखी वात्सल्यामृतवर्षिणीं सुमधुरं सङ्कीर्तनालापिनीं श्यामाङ्गीं मधुसिक्तसूक्तम् अमृतानन्दात्मिका ईश्वरी ॐ अमृतेश्वर्यै नमः ॐ अमृतेश्वर्यै नमः ॐ अमृतेश्वर्यै नमः. Welcome back again. So handing over the session to you, sir.
Okay. Think we could not connect for the last 2 weeks because of some travels I had. So today we will also focus on some new rivers. And I plan to introduce to 3 or 4 more rivers and understand the different aspects of geographical aspects of it. These rivers, in terms of complexity, they are not very complex like the Sarayu River, etc., where we have spent a lot of time. Because even the names of the rivers have not much change even in today current period, and it is again a matter of immense pride because the Ṛgvedic some of the Ṛgvedic rivers mentioned in the rivers mentioned in the Rig Veda, which is part of this what we call today as Pakistan. Despite all the cultural, a huge cultural turmoil that happened in the northwestern part of India, which we now call as Pakistan, with all these bloodsheds and violence that has happened, the names of those rivers continue to be the same. And that I consider as one of the biggest evidence of the power of our rishis, our ancient Ṛgvedic rishis, who lived and walked on this land. Whatever names they have given to the rivers, they continue to be the same river names even today, with all that happened. So I use this as a point to tell that culture and cultural like in tradition is more powerful than even religion, and it can be even powerful than the most violent religion as well. So just I will like show into the screen these the rivers, and then we will discuss in detail about it. Just sharing my screen. Yes. Yeah. So one of the river that we are talking today is, anyway, we are into the very close to the Sindhu River. We have seen a lot of rivers on the banks on tributaries of Sindhu. So one of the river that we are talking about is this river, the Kubha River, and of course its current name is Kabul River. Of course, the name appears to be slightly modified, but it is a morphological like morphological transformation happened to the word, the Sanskrit word Kubha. That word has been transformed into Kabul. So that is see, at least you can see the Kubha River mentioned in in Sanskritam, Vedic Sanskritam, in the Ṛgveda. You can recognize the name. There is a K, there is a Ka here is a Ka, there is Bha is now become Bull. So Kabul. So it's a Kubha River's transformation into current times, Kabul River. And despite all that happened, all the invasions, all the geopolitical turmoil, religious conflicts, the river name is the Ṛgvedic river name, and it goes both into the Pakistan and Afghanistan. So this is the Kabul River, and as far as Ṛgvedic geographical studies is concerned, it was very straightforward to recognize the river because anyway it was mentioned as a tributary of Sindhu in the 5th mandala of the Ṛgveda. That is somewhere into the early late Ṛgvedic period, or you can even consider it as middle Ṛgvedic, depending upon how you chronologically you define it. But of course, we typically use the word early part of the late Ṛgvedic period, because 5th mandala onwards it is considered as late Ṛgvedic period. Or even though the 5th mandala within the late Ṛgvedic period, that is defined by mandalas 5, 8, 9, and 10. So these 4 mandalas define the late Ṛgvedic period. 5, 8, 9, and 10. In that, the 5th mandala is the earliest mandala. So, and it is somewhat chronologically closer to the middle Ṛgvedic period, defined by different parts of the 1st mandala. So this is like you can say somewhat late part of the middle Ṛgvedic period, or early part of the late Ṛgvedic period. Both the terminologies more or less finds correct. So in that early part of the late Ṛgvedic period, the 5th mandala, we have this river mentioned along with other tributaries of Sindhu. So that is the one river. And the second river is again another tributary of Sindhu, the western tributary, that is the Kuram River. And it is mentioned in the Ṛgveda as Krumu. And so Kubha and Krumu are all mentioned as a tributaries of Indus River. So today we have Kabul and Kuram as the tributaries of Indus. So the kind of identification is very straightforward. Doesn't require any rocket science. So this is straightforward identification. Okay, the tributary of, and again there is a geographical hint in the Sukta itself that it is a western tributary of Sindhu. That is also geographical encoding also happens into the Rik, whatever stanza inside that Sukta, that encoding that it is a western tributary of Sindhu, even that is also encoded by the rishis. So then it becomes identification is very easy that, okay, this is the Kubha and Krumu are the western tributaries of Sindhu. Straightforward, okay, Kabul. Kubha is Kabul and Kuram They are the straightforward western tributaries of Sindhu. So again, it also means that the ancient rishis, the Ṛgvedic rishis, lived on the banks of the Kabul River as well as the Puram River. And yeah, one of the again, this is the right time for me to tell that one of the biggest achievement I find for my book Rivers of Rigveda is that it got some admirers from Pakistan, and a couple of people after buying the book, they say that your book has opened their minds that okay, they're part of this, some of these territories are Ṛgvedic lands. So these people, of course, they are ex-Muslims, and they no longer consider as part of the Islam, etc. So they are actually trying to recognize their, re-recognize their identities. They were like trying to redefine themselves and recognize their true identity, etc. And of course, unfortunately, in the Mahabharata and Ramayana, the river names like Kupa or this Krumu are not mentioned, because whenever we have the Itihasas, the Mahabharata and Ramayana, the focus shifted to this Uttar Pradesh and Haryana. For example, Mahabharata, the Hastinapur and Indraprasth means it is Delhi and today's Hastinapur region. So even though they talk about countries, Janapadas in the Pakistan region, they are very much not focused on the river names, etc. So we don't find the river names like Krumu and Ubha in Mahabharata, or even in the Ramayana, where the focus is on Ayodhya in Uttar Pradesh. Only the mention about is the KK Janapada, that is somewhere here. I mean, it located somewhere in this region. Okay, in the Vidasta region, somewhere into this, where the Kaikeyi is born, and they have the Kaikeyi was the most beautiful wife of Dasharatha. All these things they mentioned, but there is no mention of the rivers in the western side in the Ramayana. They mostly, the Valmiki Rishi is not very familiar with that geography, western side geography. Similarly, Vyas also in the Mahabharata they mention about Gandhara. Yeah, I mean, in the Ṛgveda it is mentioned as Gandharva. So in the Gandhara region, the Shakuni and all people are there, and then they try to influence the Kuru Janapada in Hastinapur. All these things mentioned in the Mahabharata, but they fail to mention the river named Kubha flowing through the Gandhara region in the Mahabharata. But in the Ṛgveda, it is because there is a lot more focus on to the this Sindhu and its tributaries, because the rishis were migrating westward, and each of their milestone they were very much very much with a lot of interest. That westward migration milestones they were recording in the Ṛgveda. And so these river names like Upha and Krumu are found mentioned in the Ṛgveda. So these are the two river names. I'm just giving an this is part of subject of today's talk. And then there is another river called Anitapha. Anitapha is another river. The third river I want to introduce. It is a northern, northwestern tributary of Sindhu River. So this is the Sindhu River itself. You can see the Indus mentioned here. So Sindhu River flowing into the mountainous Himalayan region. It is also having another name called Rasa. It's a kind of an alternate name for the Sindhu River, especially applicable to the northern mountainous course of the river Sindhu, because all this white color you are seeing, white color here indicate the elevation, high elevation. So this is to the north side of Kashmir. So Kashmir Valley is here somewhere. So the river Indus or Sindhu River is flowing to the north of the Kashmir Valley, right? And anybody knowing that that's particular geography know that the Indus River originates very close to the Manasarovar Kailas region in Tibet, and then flow to the north of Kashmir like this. And here, at this point, the river till that point the river is moving from east to west direction. And at this point of inflection, the Sindhu River travels or change the course to north to south direction. So here east to west direction, then suddenly but exactly this point, the river shift to a north-south direction. This is north and this is south. So river is flowing in a north-south direction. So till that time, the river is flowing from east to west direction. So there is a 90-degree turn for the river, and there is a tributary joining at this 90-degree turn of the river. That river is the Anitabha. And today it is known as Pondia. The river name is Pondia River. So it's a very small river, Pondia River, and it flows and joins the river Sindhu at the 90-degree turn of the river Sindhu. So this is the third river we want to introduce. The first river is Kubha. That is a very long river. So that is a Kabul river, which is flowing towards the Afghanistan. And of course, the capital of Afghanistan, Kabul, it's also actually a part of the, it's on the banks of the Kabul river. And the Kabul city follows the tradition of the Ṛgvedic period, where the city name is same as the river name. And this is also why in the Ṛgveda, you don't see like a many number of names of the cities are not seen in the Ṛgveda, because those times the cities were also, like identified as the city name is you can say synonymous, or not synonymous, but city name and the river name are both same. The name of the city share the name of the river. This is because the most ancient settlements, these settlements grow because of the river. So the river is completely sustaining the settlement. So it's just like a child is born from a mother, any child, when the child is growing, that child grows from getting nourishment from the mother, and the umbilical cord connect the child with the mother. So similarly, any ancient settlement, typically all these are riverine settlements. So all the riverine settlements are actually like children of that river itself, because of there is a river, and because there are a lot of resources you get from the river, that people started living together in that particular point on the banks of the river. In that particular point on the bank of the river becomes a town, a village, a town, or a city. And so those cities becomes the children or the child of the river itself. And there was no separate identity for the city. It is identified by the name of the river itself. And because of that, typically you don't see any city name, town name, etc. in the Ṛgveda. Very rarely, like Pastyavati here. So which is completely distinct and different from the river name Sarayu. So very rare. Otherwise, typically you don't see any kind of town name, city name. But of course, whenever we call the city or town or village, typically all of them are smaller than today's villages. So that's also another point we need to understand. And of course, whatever Harappan settlements we see around these rivers, exactly of the same nature. So when we qualify them with the name city, etc. But basically, the right word is settlement, because they are smaller than even today's villages or wards. Even the Harappan city, which is one of the biggest cities in the Harappan civilization, but it is very small compared to the today's. It's nowhere close to Mumbai or Delhi or Bangalore or even any small cities like Calcutta, any kind of small city. It's a very small, compared to that population of that period, 100 times smaller than today's population because of that. So why I'm saying all of this is because there is a perfect geographical synchrony of the Ṛgvedic region with the Harappan settlement. So many people object by saying, okay, Harappans means it's all about cities. But Ṛgveda, there is no cities. But this kind of confusion comes because when people talk about cities, they automatically think about very big cities like Delhi or Mumbai or Calcutta, Chennai or Bangalore, like that. But they are, these Harappan cities, when they say they are small settlements, the maximum number of people who will be living in those Harappan cities will be around 20,000 to 30,000 people. And that 20,000, 30,000 people means is smaller than today's villages. So if you understand this, then you know that, okay, the amount of whatever Harappan cities we have unearthed on the different banks of the rivers perfectly match with the situation in the Ṛgveda. Of course, especially if you use the word settlement instead of using the word village or any kind of similar terminologies. You can actually use the word settlement, which makes perfect sense, because then you don't care about whether it is a village, town, or city. And another important point, where we don't see any kind of distinct names of cities in the Rig Veda, because the same reason. That is where I am talking about that. The rivers typically assume the name of the cities or the settlement typically assume the name of the river itself. And one example is the Kabul River and the Kabul city. And this is, so both the Kabul River and the Kabul city, which is the capital of Afghanistan, is a kind of a tradition that is starting, followed from the Ṛgvedic period itself. So similarly, there is Krumu, there is a Kurram River, and then that is the second river I am introducing today. That is Kubha and Krumu, two western tributaries of Indus River, and they are very clearly marked in the Rig Veda as tributaries of Indus, and also indirectly encoded that they are western tributaries. And Anitapa is also another western tributary, but it is a little bit north, as I mentioned, where the Indus River is turning from east to west to north to south. The 90-degree orientation change of the river. Exactly at that point, this river is coming and joining Anitapa. And there are two more rivers I will introduce. They are the Mehatnu and Gomati. So Gomati, here is the Gomati River, and today it is known as Gomal. So of course, the Indians are very familiar with the Gomati River, the tributary of the Ganga, Gomti or Gomati in the Uttar Pradesh. Even in the Ramayana, Sri Rama is mentioned as going south. When he is going south from Ayodhya to Dandakaranya, he was mentioned as crossing the Gomati River. And all that. So that Gomati is in Uttar Pradesh, but this is a Gomati, different Gomati, that is a western Gomati, or the Gomati which is a tributary of the Sindhu River. So that is a Gomati, and there is a Mehatnu River. Okay, yeah. Here actually all the four rivers what I'm talking about is together. Kubha, Krumu, Mehatnu, and Gomati. All these four tributaries are very famously mentioned in the fifth mandala, one sukta, and the sukta indicates these four rivers as the western tributaries of Sindhu, and even Sarayu is also mentioned as separately. Like the Rik is formed such that the first line of the Rik means stanza of Rig Veda. So in the first line of the stanza of this Ṛgvedic verse gives all the rivers in the western side, and in the rivers in the western side, the sukta list out Kubha, Krumu, Gomati, and Mehatnu. All these western side rivers are mentioned, and just in a single river alone is mentioned in the second pada. Or the first pada gives you all the four rivers in the western side, and one river alone is separately mentioned. So it is a hint of this river to be on the eastern side. And this is also another evidence I have used to define or conclude that the river Sarayu is an eastern tributary of the Sindhu. Of course, the Ṛgvedic river Sarayu, not to be confused with the Uttar Pradesh Sarayu. So all these things are automatically detected, encoded into the Rig itself. So these are the four rivers. Of course, 5 rivers we are actually today focusing. That is Kubha, Krumu, Mehatnu, Gomati, and of course Sarayu. These rivers are mentioned together. Anitapa is a little bit northern side. I mentioned is to the north of Kashmir. So here in this map, only up to Kashmir Valley is seen. So it is in the north of the Kashmir. So that's what I am showing here, Anitapa. This particular this particular part is the northern side of the Jammu and Kashmir. Now this is the Pak occupied the Kashmir currently. Of course, very soon ready to merge with India. So This is the area where the Ranitapha river is there. So there are totally 5 rivers that in this particular talk I'm introducing. So anything like, for example, 1 minute, I just stop this share. A lot of disturbances. Yes. So basically, like these rivers also have a lot of significance, because especially when I am talking about this Kubha and Pramu rivers, Kubha meaning the Kabul river and Pramu being the Kurram river, both very famous rivers in the Pakistan. And of course, like I mentioned, some of the Pakistanis, that is who was trying to trace out their ancestry, or who want to be, I mean, not they who wants to be, I mean, who are not satisfied with their current religion and trying to return back to the roots. So they are appreciating a lot by seeing these maps, where they see that, okay, there is this, their Kuram river is part of the Ṛgveda, Kubha river is part of Ṛgveda, or this Kondia river, Anitapai is part of, Gomal is part of the Ṛgveda, Mehatnu is part of it. All these things make them somehow feel rooted. And this is one of, I mean, it's almost like an award I felt, because they were of course reading Ramayana, Mahabharata, everything, but there is no, of course, the rivers, there is no mention about these rivers, which are like very much rooted into their geography, but that is there in the Ṛgveda, and that's like they find it to be, very much heartening, etc. And of course, in the Mahabharata and Ramayana, or see, of course, because of various political reasons, the Gandhara, the King Shakuni and all is somewhat not somebody can be emulated. So definitely they are portrayed in a very negative manner in the Mahabharata. So they were trying to find out something which connect to their civilizational roots, and then they found these rivers of Ṛgveda, and then there are these rivers. I mean, and the mention in the Ṛgveda that it's neither positive or negative; it's neutral. Like, okay, there are these rivers. So even in the Ramayana, there is a KK Janapada, which is part of the Pakistan. But again, they see Kaikeyi is not a very great person to be emulated. So, but here actually straight away these rivers are mentioned, and their names also continue to be the same. Of course, we see a transformation, but typically that's actually kind of a transformation that you get when thousands of years elapse. So we are now talking about these names are actually recorded in the Ṛgveda. Being an early part of the late Ṛgvedic period, it can be like dated to around 2500 BC to 2000 BC, etc. So we are talking about 4000 years ago, but it's still continuing today. And this river, the names of these rivers in the continuity, you can see it in the 5th mandala, that 53rd sutta, and 9th sloka, 9th verse. We can see it. And the geographical encoding that is done is this rivers like Rasa, Anitapa, Kubha, and Pramu. The western side rivers, or the all these rivers are mentioned to the western side, and Sarayu alone is mentioned separately in the second pada, which is a geographical encoding. Because similar encoding we see in the Nadi Sutta also, where Sindhukshit Priyametha, our famous Rishi, who is the biggest geographer in Ṛgveda, who mentioned 21 rivers. Again, there is an geographical encoding in the 10th mandala, 75th Sutta, the Nadi Sutta, where the verse 5 mentions Sududri, Parishni, Asikni, Maridratha, Pitasta, Arjiki, and Sushoma, where they are mentioned as a tributaries of Sindhu, and all of them falls in the eastern side. And then the sixth verse mentioned the remaining rivers in the western side, like Tritsama, Shushartu, Rasa, Shvetya, Kubha, Gomati, Mahatnu, and Krum. So there is an geographical encoding in the river names, both in the Nadi Sukta and in the Sukta of the fifth mandala, where these western the tributaries of Sindhu alone are mentioned. So that is the encoding which help us to resolve a lot of geographical problems, geographical identification problems of some very tough rivers like Sarayu, which I have done in the book Rivers of Ṛgveda. And that is how we can identify Sarayu as the Haro River, the eastern tributary of Sindhu. But of course, the other rivers, the very easy identification, because their names are almost same in today also, like Kubha River is a Kabul river, and Kurram River is Krumu River is the Krumu in mentioned in the Ṛgveda is the Kurram River. Gomati mentioned in the Ṛgveda is the Gomal, and Mahatnu River. I need a little more mention, little more additional things I need to talk about the Mahatnu River, because the Mahatnu River is currently doesn't exist. It's something like Marudpratha. Because in different the verses regarding the Mahatnu in the Ṛgveda identify that the entire river dynamics keep just like the river dynamics I have talked about during the Vidasta River. So something similar has happened in case of the Mahatnu also. Let me check the graph, and then it will become very clear. Mahatnu. Yeah, just give me a moment. I think I have already mentioned it once, but I think today we are focusing on the river itself, so I can mention it more, a little more in detail. So among all the different tributaries of Sindhu, the Mahatnu River has to be now, because it's a geographically a little bit confusing. Because earlier there was in the fourth and fifth mandala period where the Mahatnu is mentioned. You can see the river Mahatnu is a tributary of Gomati River. It is not a tributary of Sindhu River. So you can see this is the Mahatnu River and coming and joining the Gomati River, Gomati River. And Gomal is taking the water of Mahatnu and getting into the Sindhu River. And of course, there is so many things I need to tell. The river Sindhu, this is the current channel of the river Sindhu. You can see it's a very big river. So you can see this is the river channel of this is how the river Sindhu flows today. That is in 2023, the river is flowing today. But in the ancient period, like when there is a fourth and fifth mandala of the Ṛgveda, that is a middle Ṛgvedic period, somewhere in the middle Ṛgvedic, the river was flowing slightly to the east, like the channel was little bit eastern. So this is the old Indus, mentioned old Indus channel. This is the eastern channel. Up to here, it was an east channel. The river was flowing like this, the eastern side. So because of that, see, you can see the Kubha River. Here there is no problem because the same channel, the river Sindhu is flowing in the same channel in the ancient period and today also. So the Kubha River from Afghanistan comes and joins the Sindhu River. There are no dynamical problem here, and it flows like this. And in the plain, when it is coming outside, when it enters the plain, this is also plain, but somewhat little bit lower plane, lower elevation plane. It enters there. Here onwards, it starts changing its course. This is the current course, but earlier it was flowing like this. And this is also why the Vibali River, that is the old course of Jalam River, coming and joining here. So all these river dynamics. And you can see Kurram River. See, instead of Kurram River, today it joins this new channel of Sindhu here. But instead of that, in ancient times, it was joining little bit to the eastern side, because the Sindhu was in the eastern side at that time. And see, first I will tell the sequence. The Sindhu comes here. First, the Kubha joins it from the west, and then Sarayu joins it from the east. That is the Haro River, and then it goes here. And this here it's this is Sushoma River comes and join here, Kuram river joins it, and Vibali joins it, and then go it southward. The Mehatnu is not joining it, because Mehatnu is getting in, joining the Gomati river, and the Gomati is joining here, and this Gomati is the Komal. Here you can mention Komal. So this how the Sindhu river was flowing. But 10th mandala period, what happened? The 10th mandala, that is recorded in the Nadi Sukta. So this 5th mandala is recorded. The 5th mandala situation is recorded in the 5th mandala Sukta, where I mentioned the rivers like Upha and Krumu are mentioned. Even Gomati is mentioned, but Mehatnu is not mentioned in the 5th mandala, because Mehatnu was that time a tributary of Gomati, so it was not having any importance. But in the 10th mandala, what happens? The same river is flowing like this, and of course these 3 rivers, Krumu, Mehatnu, and Gomati, are flowing together and joining in. And if you look at the Nadi Sukta, exactly the same thing is described in the Nadi Sukta, which mentions, I mean, if you properly understand the word meaning, it mentions about Gomati bringing Krumu and Mehatnu to Sindhu. That is how the meaning, that is, this Gomati river is bringing Krumu and Mehatnu. The 2 other rivers are brought by Gomati. Basically, you can say that the waters of Krumu and Mehatnu are carried by Gomati into the river Sindhu. So that kind of a meaning you can get in the 10th mandala Nadi Sukta. And what happens today? Because today you don't see that situation that is found in the 10th mandala. Because what happened is Sindhu river actually captured the channel of Gomati actually. So the ancient channel of the Sindhu river from this point onwards is actually flowing through this old channel of Krumu and Gomati, etc. Because it has moved westwards. This is the old channel. The Sindhu river transformed itself to the west, and it was actually capturing the tributary channels. So some part of the tributaries, the channel of the tributary, this is a Mehatnu, this much of the tributary of the channel of Mehatnu is captured. This much of the channel of Krumu is captured. See, so here there was a kind of a tectonical or a geological shift, river hydrological shift at this point, and the river Sindhu started flowing slightly westwards. And then what happens? It flows through it becomes like, it flows through this particular channel. Means earlier this was the channel of the Krumu. The Sindhu river is flowing through it. So basically what happens, the Krumu river has to be seen as joining Sindhu at this point. And then it took the channel of Mehatnu, it took the channel of Gomati, and it's flowing like this. So today there is a situation that Gomati, Mehatnu, and Krumu all are tributaries of Indus river. But today what happens, another important point happened, the Mehatnu is not a river anymore. This channel can be seen in the satellite images. Just like we can see Saraswati channel in the satellite images, this Mehatnu channel can be seen, but the river is completely dried up. Maybe some 100-500 years, there might have some flow in the river because of rainwater. And even today also, because whenever rain comes, it somehow gets into the river, the nearby river. So, but nobody considered this as a river anymore, because more or less dead river. So this is another dead river, because the Pakistan side, there is a big problem of water resources, etc. One of the main water resource for them is the Sindhu river itself, Indus river. And many of the tributaries of the river is dried up because of the poor management of the rivers, of course. See, Bharatiya culture means we care a lot more about the rivers, because we consider the rivers as devatas. And because of that, maybe the river will continue a little more, the life of the river will a little more continue. But whatever religion that has been expanding in this region, I don't know how much they care about the rivers. So some of this is one of the river which has become a victim of human activity, and it is dead. So there is no longer any river. So even if somebody goes to this location and search for a river, there will not be, nothing will be found, only buildings and maybe field cultivation or buildings, something like that will be seen, because there will not be any river, because this river is dead. But of course, in the satellite channels, in the satellite imagery, you can look at it. You can see a drainage channel here. A dead river drainage channel is there, can be seen on the for the Mehatnu. So, as far as today is concerned, we no longer have this river called Mehatnu, but we do have Kubha River and Krumu River. We do have Gomati, that is Gomal. So, as far as Pakistan is concerned, it is Kabul, Kurram, and Gomal. So, 3 rivers are there. Of course, the Vibali channel of the Jhelum River is dead, so there is no longer any river flowing like this to the Sindhu River. It is the Jhelum River. This river itself is only there. The Vibali channel is also dead. We have discussed in our previous talk about Vibali. And of course, the Sushoma, Sohan, all these rivers, Sarayu, as Haro is already there, is always there continuously. It is there like that. This river is there. So this is about the Mehatnu River. Mehatnu, very kind of geographically like a little bit confusing river. And I have given explanation of the absence and presence of the river Mehatnu in different parts of the Ṛgveda, so that all that riddle is resolved. Otherwise, the Mehatnu river was very, because many of the Ṛgvedic geography researchers, they find the identification of Sarayu become very difficult, which I have resolved as the Haro River, the eastern tributary of Sindhu. And this Mehatnu was another riddle. The Mehatnu River also another means difficult river to identify, especially because the river doesn't exist today. So I have resolved all the kind of riddle of Mehatnu, like solving a puzzle. So why the Mehatnu river is not mentioned in the 5th mandala when the rivers like Kupha and Kurram are mentioned? I give an explanation for that. And why this river is suddenly appearing in the 10th mandala as a river between Krumu and Gomati. That I have explained because of the river hydrology, the river dynamics. That 10th mandala when the Sindhukshit Priyameda was describing the rivers. Of course, 10th mandala means the end of the late Ṛgvedic period, where we are about to start the peak period of Sri Rama and subsequently after 100 years, the peak period of Pandavas. All this are about to come. At that period, Mehatnu river was flowing as a tributary which joins the Krumu river, and Krumu and Mehatnu combinedly join the Gomati river, and the Gomati joins the Sindhu river. Because of all these reasons, of course, the Rishi find it, because they also knows the ancient period dynamics also. And the Rishi decided, okay, I will now mention the Mehatnu river as a river that is brought by Gomati. Like along with Krumu, Mehatnu is also brought by a river Gomati. Basically means water from these 2 tributaries are brought by Gomati into Sindhu. And that geographical information is captured in the Nadi Sukta of the 10th mandala. And similarly, the situation of Mehatnu as a tributary of Gomati, and the 5th mandala Rishi decided not to, give any importance to the river Mehatnu. So this is the reason why it has been like this. So in the 5th mandala, you get only the river names Krumu and this Kupha and Krumu. Whereas in the and Gomati, of course, subsequently Gomati also is mentioned. Anitapha is mentioned, and of course in the 5th mandala is the first time the river Sarayu is also mentioned. So 5th mandala is the period wherein the most important thing, that is the crossing of the Ṛgvedic people to the western side of Sindhu, also occurred in the 5th mandala period. I think we have some more time. These are all about the rivers. So we have covered like a larger number of rivers here, because of course the information about these rivers are not very elaborate, right? Like the river Saraswati or even Sarayu, but very significant in terms of a milestone in the migration of the Ṛgvedic, the dominant Ṛgvedic people to the western side, crossing the river Sindhu and getting familiarity with this rivers, the western tributary rivers. I will close here and we'll have a discussion.
Okay, sir. Sir, if anyone has any doubt, they can ask now.
Namaskaram, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, sir, this old Gomati confluence we are seeing, two
Yeah.
old Gomati confluences we are seeing. So, this Gomati, when Gomati is carrying these rivers water into the Sindhu in 10th mandala, and in 5th mandala, you're saying Gomati was directly coming, and that was not the very longer channel. It was directly coming to Indus, taking Mehatnu's water. So, are these two channels still visible in the satellite? These two channels were
yes.
separately visible. Okay.
Yes. So even though Mehatnu is not flowing today, anybody looking at the satellite like imagery of the Pakistan region, they can see the Mehatnu river channel. So because there is a depression created by the river flow. So even if some kind of buildings are created there, or some farming is done in that into the riverbed, still you can make out that there is a river by looking at the satellite channels. This is exactly how in ISRO satellite imagery we have discovered the Saraswati river channel. And of course, the river Saraswati was much bigger, wider river channel, so it was easy to identify. But the Mehatnu, you have to look very, very clearly and closely to see the river channel. And of course, what I understand of my further studies when I looked at it, that area, I see some canals are there, water canals. So, and this has happened in the Saraswati river bed also in Haryana, wherever that river Saraswati was flowing, and today it's a dried up channel. They have set of canals to take the water. So that is happened actually. That happens. And again, we have seen the Yavyavati river. The western channel of the Yamuna river is called Yavyavati in the Ṛgveda, early Ṛgveda also. And that river channel become dried up. And now today we have the Yamuna canal through that channel. So of course, the people are reusing that canal, that channel in some manner. I mean, at least to carry the water from some other river, they are trying to reuse that channels.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one more thing I wanted to actually, this is a repetitive question. Sir, when the Bharata lineage, they are moving, you know, the Samvarana Bharata is moving towards northwest. Was there already a connection with the Ikshvakus, Western Ikshvakus? Or the Ikshvaku, the connection happened in the Sindhu Sarayu region only?
Yes. So because the Ṛgveda, what happens, all the suktas and of the Ṛgveda, basically it is a point of or the perspective of the Bharata people. And the Bharatas are expanding. So the rishis are affiliated mostly with the Bharata lineage. And of course, it so happened that there were two Bharata lineages that rishis are very affectionate about. One is the Sudas, the king, dominant king Sudas, and his descendants like Sahadeva and Somaka, everybody, even the ancestors of Sudas like Divodasa and Pratardhana. So that entire lineage of Sudas, both in the ancestors and descendants, the Ṛgvedic rishis were affiliated with them because they were the patrons who were giving them like dana, donations, etc. And then the rishis also get sustained, and they also created the Ṛgvedic hymns. Another another Bharata lineage, they are very much affectionate about is the Samvarana Bharata. So these two Bharata lineages, they were supporting and they were giving. So whenever they migrate, they have a battle, all these things they observe and then they praise them. So that is how most of the Ṛgvedic suktas are like that. So from the perspective of the Ṛgvedic rishis, they first see this especially the Vasishtha is basically he sees that the Samvarna Bharatas are like moving from in the northwestern direction, of course, with support from the Mahabharata data. Also, I'm including the Mahabharata data to support it. So they first encounter the Ikshwakus, the Western Ikshwakus, they call Trikshis. So this technical term or the Ṛgvedic term for the Western Ikshwaku is Trikshi. So they first saw the Trikshis in the Sarayu, that is the Ṛgvedic Sarayu region, Sindhu Sarayu region, and they observed all these things. So some of the kings of the Trikshis like Trasadasyu and Purukutsa, they observed them and they started praising Trasadasyu and Purukutsa also. Primarily because even though they are Trikshis and not Bharatas, they are praised because these kings were very much supportive of the Samvarna Bharata lineage, and they helped them to win some battles. So even the praise of the Ikshwakus like Trikshis, primarily because of the support they have given to the Bharatas. Bharatas means it can also be the Purus, Purus or Bharatas. Well, they are the same lineage. The Bharata is a specialized lineage of the Purus. So that's because of that support they are praised. Trasadasyu and Purukutsa are praised. So of course, in the 10th mandala, the Ṛgvedic rishis become little more universal. But in the early Ṛgvedic period, the Ṛgvedic rishis were primarily supporters of the Bharata lineage. Whereas by the late Ṛgvedic period, by the 10th mandala, there was huge number of rishis. Because if you count the number of rishis, the 10th mandala rishis are more compared to all the rishis in the other mandalas. By the time the Ṛgvedic culture become very much universal and expanded, then you will see so many rishis directly in support of the Ikshwakus, etc. Even the word Ikshwaku itself first mentioned in the 10th mandala, because they were little more diversified compared to being only the supporter of the Bharatas. They themselves become diversified, and there were rishis supporting directly affiliated with the Ikshwakus, etc. happened in the 10th mandala period. A very good question. So I think this will be resolved in this. That is a kind of difference. Early Ṛgvedic period, almost everybody, like 99% of the rishis, were only knowing about and getting support from the Bharatas, especially the Sudas lineage of the Bharatas. But subsequently, in the 7th mandala, you see first time the Samvarna Bharatas getting supported. One of the opposition of the Sudas, they are getting support by the 7th mandala. That is a late part of the early Ṛgvedic period. Slowly, all the Ṛgvedic rishis, diversified. They get diverse patronage from different lineages, not just from the Bharatas, but also from Ikshwakus, that is the Western Ikshwakus. And of course, in the 10th mandala, why the Rama is praised? Rama is an Eastern Ikshwaku king. So that means the 10th mandala period, when Sri Rama was born, Sri Rama was alive, he was a great king. The support gone to as far as the Eastern Ikshwakus. So the entire geography of the northern India, from Uttar Pradesh to Afghanistan, so many kings are there. All those kings are become patrons of the Ṛgvedic rishis, and the rishis started supporting them and writing, composing suktas in praise of them.
Sir, then Rishi Bharadwaja, how much he was contributing for the formation of this Bharata lineage?
Yeah, very important question. I have answered. I've given a complete answer in this third book, the geography of Mahabharata. So much so that you can't separate Bharadwaja from Bharata. That is the kind of contribution that Bharadwaja have done. Because in the earliest Ṛgveda, it's completely a Bharadwaja Rishi Gotra. The earliest mandala, 6th mandala, is completely a Bharadwaja Rishi mandala. You can even say that only rishis who were contributing to Ṛgveda during the 6th mandala period were the Bharadwajas. And the separation of the Bharadwaja and Bharata is totally blurred. So in fact, if you actually go by the Mahabharata poet, they made a lot of you can say the wordplay there. saying that Bharata is Bharata's son Bhumanyu is born from Bharadwaja. That kind of words are seen. So
Yes, sir. Yes, I
indirectly
was
the
just trying
Rishi
to
is
come into
saying,
this.
yeah. So indirectly the Rishi is saying that Bharata and Bharadwaja are inseparable. I mean, we don't know how much they are connected, and that is the kind of situation. And of course, like in the Ṛgveda, you have many Bharadwaja rishis who are like considered as composers, and the same Bharadwaja rishis are mentioned as kings in Mahabharata. So were they really rishis or were they actually kings? So we have that doubt. No, that doubt will come because the Bharadwaja lineage and the Bharata lineage is completely, maybe we can say genetically or otherwise they are inseparable and they are the same. I mean, I can even say that they are both same actually. But of course, in the Ṛgveda, they are represented as composers and as rishis, whereas in the Mahabharata, the Mahabharata lineage, the poets who are describing the lineage of the Kauravas and Pandavas treat them as rajas. And of course, to some extent, it is correct also, because in the earlier we go into the Ṛgvedic period, the oldest period, the separation between raja and the priest and king is not very clear. The priest is always almost the priest and kings are both the same function as we go into the further into the past. So in a way that is correct also, but of course in the later period when there was a distinction between the raja and the purohita, that that time this confusion came. So that is why the rishi there is a confusion, or the way they are described as confusing, because sometimes in the Mahabharata they are described as kings, whereas in the Mahabharata in the Ṛgveda they are the same people are mentioned as rishis. This is also because of that.
Sorry, sir, I have another question.
Yeah.
So I was just going through some Bengali translations of transliterations of Rig Veda, which is just
Yeah.
available in my home. So, but they're just simply considering the first mandala as the first. I mean, the chronology what we are following or what we are learning here, that chronology they're not considering. They're just simply considering going with the first mandala is the first, so like this.
Ah.
So that's why there are lots of confusions in the understanding of the geography and the migrations and everything, which I understand. But sir, how do I convey what I'm learning here? How do I convey? Because many people in my family, they're not very much interested, or they don't really understand this BC things and all. So how do I, in a very layman's word, explain the chronology?
Yeah, so that pioneering work is done by Srikant Talagiri, where he has, before writing the book, he has spent 10 years studying all the nouns in the Ṛgveda. Nouns means all the names, personal names in the Ṛgveda. So he has listed out all the names of the rishis and all the names of the kings. And of course, as I mentioned, the older you go into the Ṛgveda, the rishi and the king are not very much distinct. But in other ways, even other ways, he has done that separation, the rishi and the king. So there will be around, if I also counted it. So in my counting, let me take it directly. Instead of there were 400 plus kings. Actually, I can get the exact count. The list of Ṛgvedic poets. I'll just even share it to you so that you can see. Okay. Yeah, this is straight from my book, right? So you can say 424 rishis mentioned in the Ṛgveda, and the number of kings. There are 213 kings also mentioned, that is chiefs or kings are mentioned in the Ṛgveda. So anybody having the reverse of Ṛgveda, they can see the names of the kings, 213 kings, and the list of the Ṛgvedic poets. So I have mentioned it. So around 424 rishis. So just some kind of instability in my laptop. So there are 400 plus rishis and 200 plus kings mentioned in the Ṛgveda. So very much data dense in terms of data. It is heavy dense. But whenever anybody reads a traditional reading of the Ṛgveda, they are not conscious about this huge amount of data present in the Ṛgveda. And what Srikant Talagiri has done is this: all the rishis he has arranged chronologically by looking at their patronyms. That is, descendant versus ancestor relationships are established using the patronym. That is, for example, Suhotra Bharadwaja. Suhotra Bharadwaja means the Suhotra is the descendant of Bharadwaja. And some other rishi have a Sauhotra, that is the means he is a descendant of Suhotra. So that way you can actually create a lineage list, like who is the most ancient ancestor, who is the descendant. So that descendant chart we can create. So all the rishis are sequenced in a chronological order. Of course, not absolute chronology, but relative chronology, like who is the oldest rishi, who is the next rishi, who is the next rishi. Like that, the parent-child relationship is established. Similarly, all the kings, because after going through all the Ṛgveda, including in the first mandala, sixth mandala, third mandala, seventh, every mandala, you get names of the kings. So you can know that Sudas, Daivodasa, like that, some mention. So that means Sudas is a descendant of Divodasa. Or Sudas Pradardhani. So he is a descendant of Pradardhana. And Pradardhana Daivodasa, that means Pradardhana is a descendant of Divodasa. So like that, you can arrange the kings in a sequence, chronological sequence. That means then once you arrange it, the oldest king will be like somebody like Divodasa mentioned in the Ṛgveda. Of course, in the Ṛgveda mentioned Bharata is older than Divodasa. So, but Bharata is always mentioned in the past. That means he lived before the earliest mandala of the Ṛgveda itself. That is mentioned. That is why we consider Bharata as a pre-Ṛgvedic king. So he is even beyond the sixth mandala. So all the sequence you get, there is Bharata who is lived beyond the sixth oldest mandala. Then there is a Divodasa who is contemporary to the sixth mandala. And after that, so many of the descendants of Divodasa, and after that, suddenly Sudas is mentioned as contemporary in the third mandala and seventh mandala. That means this descendant of Sudas, who is coming 3 or 4 generations after Divodasa, is a contemporary king of third and seventh mandala. All this will tell us that, okay, sixth mandala I need to sequence older than third and seventh mandala. And now comes the first mandala, which traditional people consider as the first, the number of the chronologically the first mandala. You see so many rishis in the first mandala who are descendants of these Sudas, even Divodasa. So first mandala king, for example, Sahadeva and Somaga are mentioned in the first mandala. They are very clearly mentioned as descendants of Sudas. So that means automatically you cannot consider first mandala as the oldest mandala. That is how we do the sequencing.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, so you can, for example, if any of the traditional scholars, because their objective is to read the Ṛgvedic suktas and recite the suktas, etc. And they have never taken any kind of pains to do this data analysis or chronological sequence of the kings or the rishis. Once they do it, automatically they will also come to the same conclusion. Because, for example, by writing the book Geography of, Rivers of Ṛgveda, even though I have read the book of Talagiri's 2-3 books, I have completely taken it aside and tried to do my own analysis, fresh analysis, so that if there is anything wrong in the older analysis comes out. But I also came to the same conclusion, like sixth mandala has to be the oldest. Because I also can see, because I did the mapping, right? I did all this rishis lineage mappings, the oldest rishis, the latest rishi, everything I mapped. I did the sequencing myself, and I can also see there are so many descendants in the first mandala who descended from the kings who are considered as contemporary in the third and fourth mandala, third and seventh mandala. That is, many of the kings in the first mandala, like Sahadeva and Somaka, they are actually descendants of the third Mandala, seventh Mandala King Sudas. And Sudas himself is a descendant of sixth Mandala King Divodasa. And Divodasa himself is a descendant of Bharata, who anywhere in the Rigveda, even in the 10th Mandala, Bharata is mentioned as very old, ancient. That means even in 6th Mandala, Bharata is mentioned as very ancient. So you can see there is a pre-Rigvedic king named Bharata. His descendants became the Bharatas. Among them, there is a Divodasa, who is a contemporary to 6th Mandala and a Bharata, considered as a Bharata king. And then his own descendants are mentioned as contemporary, like Sudas is mentioned as contemporary in the 3rd and 7th Mandala. Sudas descendants like Sahadeva Somaka are mentioned as contemporary in the 1st Mandala. Like that, the sequence goes. Like, of course, in the 4th Mandala is also there. Like Somaka is mentioned in 4th Mandala, etc. So this entire sequence we can actually clearly establish. Like 6, then comes 3, then comes 7, and then comes 4, like that. It goes, the sequence goes there. And 1st Mandala is fragmented between 4th Mandala and the late Mandalas, etc. Again, this fragmentation of the 1st Mandala itself is an indication that 1st Mandala is authored in various period, like like the 1st and 10th Mandala, the suktas are equal in number. I think I mentioned in my one of the first class. So that the why the number of suktas in 1st and 10th Mandala is equal, because after the completion of the Rigveda, there was a planning. Okay, the 1st Mandala is like a northern gate, and the 10th Mandala is like a southern gate. No, something like both of them look synchronous. They are synchronized, not synchronized, but they are made the hymns or the suktas in both the mandalas, 191 suktas in both the mandalas. This is intentionally planned to indicate that there was growth in the 1st Mandala and there was growth in the 10th Mandala. So chronologically they grew, and both their suktas, the count of suktas is made intentionally equal. This indicates that they are, some part of it are later. And of course, 1st Mandala have very young hymns. Some of the hymns in the 1st Mandala are as old as the 4th Mandala. That is somewhere in the middle Ṛgvedic period. Of course, none of the 1st Mandala suktas are older than the early Ṛgvedic period is completely older than the 1st Mandala. But you get suktas in the 1st Mandala chronologically contemporaneous with 4th Mandala to up to even 8th Mandala, 10th Mandala also. Any other question?
Sir, one more.
Yeah.
Sir, in a recent podcast, I've heard just while talking about Vimanas and all, you were talking about the time leak, which might have happened in Mahabharata, Ramayana. So, is
Yeah.
there any evidence of such time leak in Ṛgveda which we can discuss
No.
or not?
Yeah, so in that podcast also I mentioned about any kind of a time leakage. It is not captured in the Rigveda. So at least in the Rigvedic period, to the attention of the rishis, nothing has happened, and that is why there are no kind of magical kind of things in the Rigvedic period. That is between 3300 to 1900 BC. There are no kind of such interactions, or alternatively, that interactions are not captured the attention of the rishis. Whereas we see some magical narratives starting with the Ramayana, etc. The Vimana is there, where that Vimana narrative is not a kind of because if you look at the analysis, data analysis is very sharp and very strong. That is how we do in the books. But in the Vimana description in the Ramayana is not standing enough to be considered as very substantial. Because the Vimana mentioned in the Ramayana, if you go through, I mean, even that I mentioned in my second book, Geography of Ramayana, the Rishi has or the person who has observed it or seems to have written about it in the Ramayana doesn't have any clear-cut first-hand information about the Vimana, because at some places the Vimana is mentioned as driven by horses, flying horses. At some other place, the Vimana is mentioned as driven by mules. That is the less quality horses. That is a mixture of a donkey and a horse, that is a mule. So there is a lot of confusion. So they maybe something flying started occurring during that period. But the poet who has contributed the verses about Vimana has not seen it directly, because that is why the explanation that the Vimana is driven by horse, because we know that flying on a flying vehicle doesn't require any animal to drive it, right? So when a poet says that an animal is required to drive it, means that he doesn't know clearly. Somewhere something he has heard, and then that is brought into the Ramayana. Whereas in the Mahabharata, that is the third book I am writing, that is 100 more years later, as per my chronology. You see, there is an Arjuna's, there is a kind of narrative about Arjuna Vaikamana, which means Arjuna is going to Swarga, and there Arjuna is coming to some tall mountain in the Himalaya, and even that mountain is called Indrakila, which means that it's a pin-shaped mountain where the elevation is very steep. So this standing from there, and he's airlifted from that mountain. So there actually you can see a very highly realistic explanation. Highly realistic explanation of the Vimana coming and going there. There is components of the Vimana where it mentions about combustion chambers and spherical kind of parts, and I mean, very interesting things which are like really make sense, that it is a kind of a complex machinery, like a complex flying machine. That kind of data you get in the Mahabharata. So I take it a little more seriously, and that seems to be because that narrative in the Mahabharata where it mentioned about a Vimana, and it's descending onto the top of a hill. I mean, of course, top of a Himalayan mountain, and then it is ascending upwards, and even it mentioned the sky become darker, and this kind of explanation the poet cannot imagine. If it's a pure imagination, now how do the poet know that when you go upwards the sky become darker? That is very difficult for to be taken as a pure imagination. So some kind of observation was there, like otherwise somebody has to travel, means within around, if you travel in around 20 kilometers above the surface of Earth, then the sky become dark. Even if you are traveling in a flight, because flights are 5 kilometers in height. Airplanes fly in between 5 to 7 kilometer height. So the sky is still blue color. But if you go 20 kilometers higher, the sky become darker. And exactly the same thing is mentioned in the Mahabharata, in that particular narrative. And then I have to take it very seriously. And so that is what I mentioned. So there are some signatures about something real, some kind of extraterrestrial flying vehicle kind of an experience somebody has got, and it got absorbed by the authors of Mahabharata and Ramayana as part of their chronological evolution. And here also I have mentioned in my talks about that it can happen anytime. It may not happen in the period of Pandavas. Of course, it is a possibility, but it can happen anytime, like when the Mahabharata was evolving from the period of Pandavas to very late period, because Mahabharata evolution at least up to 500 BC is very clearly we can see. So in this long period of the evolution of the Itihasas, there was a lot of enigmatic kind of experiences by various people, and that information slowly got I mean, of course, maybe not the first-hand information, but slowly got percolated into the Itihasas. So that is what I mentioned about the time leakage kind of concepts, wherein it can also be from a future, like somebody travel into the past, then also the same kind of situation can happen. Or it can be a visit from another extraterrestrial civilization into our planet. So these are the kind of possibilities that I have described in that podcast.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any other questions? I think we have spent 1.5 hours. So shall we close? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can close.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much everyone for joining us today. So we'll have the next session next week. So let's wind up the session with the Shanti Mantra. Om Lokaah Samastaah Sukhino Bhavantu. Lokaah Samastaah Sukhino Bhavantu. Lokaah Samastaah Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Namah Shivaya. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.